So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chandrahas, and we'll be discussing automation with Ansible today. So just a couple of pointers before we start. Um, After you guys are done asking questions, and once you know you're done talking, please mute yourself. And also, I'm going to have separate times allotted throughout the webinar for questions. So I'll mention it in advance when you guys can ask questions. Okay. So let's get started. So here's what we're going to discuss today. First, we're going to find out what Ansible is. Then we're going to take a look at what Ansible playbooks are. Then we're going to take a look at how to write our first Ansible playbook. Ansible playbooks are more or less like scripts that are going to perform the automation task for us. Ansible tags are essentially a feature which allows you to run specific tasks in your Ansible playbook instead of running the entire thing. Then we're going to take a look at what Ansible roles are, which is essentially like a systematic way of putting your Ansible playbook so that it gets easier for people to understand and read it. And we're going to take a look at what Ansible Galaxy is, which is essentially like an online repository which consists of all the roles that you can quickly download and customize as per your requirements. And then finally, we're going to take a look at Ansible Tower, some of its features and benefits. Ansible Tower is like a GUI-based Ansible, which has a bunch of other features, which makes it very easy and accessible for your non-IT infra guys to access Ansible and use it. And then finally, we're going to take a look at a Ansible use case. So what is Ansible? When typically anybody in the IT infrastructure space talks about Ansible, they might possibly be referring to three things. They might be referring to the automation language, which is used to write your Ansible playbooks. They might be talking about the automation engine itself, which runs the Ansible playbook. Or they might be talking about Ansible Tower, which is your enterprise framework with a GUI with a bunch of other features, which is used to make Ansible more accessible to your other users. So people who've watched the previous webinar are probably familiar with the slide. The reason why I put this anyway is because it gives a very clear understanding of what Ansible is and what Ansible does. So the very first thing that's mentioned in the slide is that it's a very simple to use. So anybody who comes across an Ansible playbook who's not very familiar with it will see that it's very easy to understand. I can very quickly grasp what the Ansible playbook is supposed to do because all the tasks are sequentially put forward and all the tasks are very easy to understand. And the fact that, you know, and it's in a very high level sense, you can understand what's going on. So it allows you to get productive quickly. It is also very powerful, and what I mean by that is that the Ansible engine can be used for something as simple as installing a service or a package in your target machines, and it can be something as powerful as installing an entire infrastructure provider as per your requirements. So really what it comes down to is what you use your Ansible for. It's also agentless. So does anybody know what agentless means? Anyone?
So basically, it doesn't have an agent on the client side to communicate with the master, right?
Right, wonderful. What's your name?
Mahesh.
Mahesh, thank you. That's a good answer. Yes, so essentially, in order to run Ansible, I don't have to install anything on the client end or the target machines. All I need is open SSH, and when I have access to my target machine, I need Python or I need PowerShell, depending on which OS I want to implement these automation tasks on, and I'm ready to go. All I need is one machine, which is going to function as my controller node with Ansible installed on it, and I can deploy my Ansible playbooks on it and start using it. Okay, so this is a pictorial representation of what's going on. You have a bunch of things over here that we're going to discuss sequentially. So first is the Ansible playbook itself. Playbooks are typically written in YAML. They're sequentially executed tasks which invoke Ansible modules. So playbooks, like it's mentioned over here, written in YAML, they consist of a bunch of things, which include tasks. We're going to take a better look at playbooks in the eventual slides itself, but this is as far as you need to know right now. Moving on, we have modules, which are essentially tools in the toolkit. What they mean by this is that anybody who's familiar with programming knows that you can import libraries and you can use functions inside that library itself. So uh, these modules are something similar. They're just very abstracted tasks that you can cater to your requirements and use them accordingly. Then you have the inventory itself. Inventory is a file which consists of all the target machines that you want to perform the automation tasks on. So in this example, there are three target machines, also known as managed hosts, and two groups. So you have web server 1 and web server 2 in the web group, and DB server 1 in the DB group. What a group is essentially is a collection of target machines or managed hosts. And then finally, you have the plugins, which are essentially shared code, which can be integrated with your Ansible module to perform a certain function. So for example, if you want an event to be triggered before your Ansible modules are run, or if you want to trigger event to be triggered after it's run, you can essentially use plugins to provide that functionality. So moving on, let's get started. Let's understand what an Ansible playbook is. An Ansible playbook is, in its core, a file containing one or more plays. So now your next question is, what's a play? A play is an ordered set of tasks that we're going to customize as per our requirements, which are going to act against the host selections from inventory. So this is essentially what a play contains. It contains a name. This is a brief description of the play. A host, which is the set of hosts that we're going to execute the tasks on. The remote user, essentially what the remote user is the user that is going to run these tasks on the target machines. So typically in OS, every sort of task has to be associated with the user. So that's what we're specifying over here. You will see a very clear understanding of this once we dive deeper into writing the playbook itself. And you have finally the tasks, which are a series of modules that you're going to customize as per your requirement. So let's go ahead and start writing our first playbook. So is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay. So this is going to be a very simple playbook that we're going to write. Let's write this. So essentially, every playbook starts with 3 dashes. Then moving on, you have the name like I mentioned, which contains a description. This is my description. And then you have all the hosts that are going to act that you want your play to be acting on. So this is going to be my host that I'm going to run my playbook on. So your host can either be an IP, or it can be a fully qualified domain name, or it can be the groups itself. And then the remote user, the most popular user that a Linux user can have is the root user itself. That's what we're going to use. And finally, we're going to have the task itself. We're going to so what's happening here is when I reach the next level, I have to indent a little to the right, and that's exactly what's happening over here. Level 1 consists of name, host, and remote user. Level 2, which belongs to task, goes to the next level, and it goes a little to the right. This is typically how a YAML file works. Now, if you don't like YAML, you can write your Ansible playbooks in JSON files as well. That is not very common. It's very atypical. But if you want to go ahead and do that, you can obviously do that as well. So I'm going to give a brief description. This is my ping module. And then I'm going to mention my playbook, my module itself. So this is as far as my playbook is concerned. This is my entire playbook. It consists of one play. The play itself consists of name, a description, host, which contains what all hosts I want my Ansible module to work on, and the remote user, which consists of the user I want to use my who is going to run the module itself on my managed host, and finally the task that I want to run. So another important thing to add to this is my inventory file. I'll just show you my inventory file as well. So as you can see, there's two hosts, one group over here, 10.99 and 10.78. These are the primary hosts that we're going to be using for the rest of the webinar. As you can notice, there's another a group as well, the DB group, in which 10.78 belongs to. So let's go ahead and run this playbook, Ansible Playbook. First.yaml. This is how you run your playbook. So what's happening is first it's gathering facts with regards to my playbook, with regards to my managed host itself, and then it's running the ping module. As you can see, this is my ping module is the description that I've provided. As you can see, it's run fine. Let me give a more verbose output so that you can better see what's going on. Can you guys see the font, by the way? Is it big enough? Do you want me to increase the font?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
It's fine, right? So as you can see, my ping gives a pong, which means my Ansible module is working fine. My Ansible can communicate, my Ansible engine can communicate with my 10.99 machine. So this is as far as the first playbook is concerned. So the slide shows like a similar output itself. You can see ping pong. So let's move on to the next slide. Let's make it a little more complex. So I'm going to pick the first, the playbook I've written, and I'm going to make some slight modifications to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write another play. As you can see, the first play is going to run on its own. It's an independent, environment of its own. The second one falls back to the same level because it has the same sort of access level that the previous play itself has. So this is my second play. This is going to be my second play. That's the description I've added. Let's add host DB over here. DB is a group like you've previously seen. My remote user is again going to be root. And let's run something else here. Let's run, this is my second task. And let's run a command module. So a command module is actually allows you to run a command on the target machine itself. So I'm going to run a very simple command. I'm going to run echo hello. I'm going to save this now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this again. So it's gathering facts about the second machine as well. So it's going to consider each play as an autonomous. Okay, so what seems to be the issue is that my SSH IDs have not been properly configured. Let's try pinging it first. Let's see what. Okay, I think my 10.78 machine is down right now, so I'm unable to access it. But for the sake of the demo, I'm going to change this. I'm going to change this host to the previous host because I know it's running right now. I'm going to run this again. So as you can see, I'm getting a hello output over here. My 10.78 was down. I think somebody switched it off, which is why it was not running. But 10.99 is working fine. So for the purposes of this demo, we're going to continue with 10.99. So before we move on, does anybody have any doubts?
No.
No? Should we move on? Fine. So let's dig into tags. Like I mentioned, tags are a very specific way of ensuring that you run only the tasks that you want to. So right now, what we have here is a very small playbook, right? But in a production environment, you're going to have a playbook with tens of tasks involved, and it gets kind of difficult to run the individual tasks itself. You end up having to write tasks which are you end up having to write tasks which are going to, you end up having to write a separate playbook to run these individual tasks. Instead, what you can do is you can put a tags parameter and you can associate a tag with a task with a tag. So for example, for my first task, the ping task, I've associated the tag1. And for my second task, I've associated a tag2. So let's run this now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run this Ansible playbook with only tag2. So what I should be getting now is only the second task which is going to run. So as you can see, my first play has not even been touched. Immediately, it has skipped to the second play because I only specified the second task in my tag. So here's the output, like I've shown. The first task has been skipped and we've moved on directly to our second task. So before we move on to Ansible roles, any questions with regards to tags and how they're used, or whatever was previously discussed?
Is there any way to test that syntax of that YAML file?
Yes, absolutely. You can use this parameter syntax check to check the syntax of your YAML file. Right. So if you have an error in your YAML file, there's a pop. It pops up over there. So for example, if my tags parameter is placed like that, it shows an error over there. So generally, it's not very visible. It usually, I mean, it's not very specific with regards to where the problem is. Generally, over here it's shown very clearly that tags is where the error is, but generally it's not that specific. So you should be very careful when you're writing the playbook itself to ensure that you're not making any mistakes. It might seem daunting at the beginning, indentation and everything, but once you figured out how indentation works in Ansible, it becomes very easy to use it.
Thank you.
Just a second. Okay, so let's move on to Ansible roles now. So this is with respect to how Ansible playbook works, right? So now still there is a problem with respect to how with how Ansible playbooks can be improved in terms of the readability and functionality, right? You have to make sure that your Ansible playbook is, when deployed in another environment with another set of parameters and variables, it should be very quickly integrated with another IT infrastructure. So that is why we use Ansible roles. It's a very documented and hierarchical way of of maintaining your Ansible playbook itself so that they can be quickly integrated with your environment and used. So let's take a look at, am I on mute? Okay, so let's move on. Let's take a look at Ansible Galaxy, where I'm going to download a role now from Ansible Galaxy. So one thing to note is that Ansible Galaxy is like an online repository. It's like the GitHub equivalent of Ansible roles. Ansible roles, you can download your Ansible roles and customize it as per your requirements. So let's go ahead and open this website. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay. So as you can see, this is a general. This is the general dashboard itself. Let's go ahead and search for an Ansible role. So okay, this looks like a good. This looks like a good role. So it's written by Grilling Guy, and it's basically to install PHP, if I'm not wrong. So let's go ahead and copy this. So it's going to look something like this: Ansible Galaxy install. And then you mention the name of the person itself who's written the Ansible role, which is Grilling Guy. You put PHP over there because that is the name of the role. Then you put P over there, which is essentially the path that you're going to store your role in. So I'm going to be storing it in roles directory. Now I'm going to run this. So as you can see, it's downloading the role PHP, which is owned by Grilling Guy, and now it's going to store it in the roles directory. Right, so it's been stored. So let's go there. Getting guide to PHP. So as you can see, it consists of a bunch of directories. It consists of defaults, handlers, meta, tasks, templates, vars, and so on. Defaults is where your default variables are stored. This is where your Ansible playbook is going to fetch the variables from if they have not been defined anywhere else. Uh, does anybody know what variables are? Not maybe not with respect to Ansible, but variables in general, maybe from programming. Okay, so variables are essentially containers. They contain or hold a certain value. So Ansible also makes use of variables. What essentially it does is it provides an ease of use in addition, so that you can call the variable multiple times and you don't have to care too much about the value itself that it contains. So Ansible itself also has a functionality, and defaults. What it does is it stores a default set of values for the variables itself that we're going to use. Similarly, you have tasks, which contains of all the tasks that we're going to use. You have handlers, which I haven't discussed. Handlers are essentially a try and catch equivalent of Ansible. Suppose, say, your task runs into an error, and you want to ensure that if it runs into an error, there's a fallback option to run another set of tasks. You can use handlers to provide that functionality. And then finally, you have templates, which consists of Jinja2 templates, which allow you to, customize a certain file based on the target machine that it ends up in. And you also have vars, where you can also store your variables. Like I mentioned, if you mention your variables in vars, it's going to pick up that variable value instead of the value that's mentioned in your default. So this is an example of Ansible role. You have so we've installed Grailing Guys PHP role, and we can run this if we want to. I'm not going to show that in this demo, but that functionality is provided. So any questions? Okay, fine. Moving on, let's talk about Ansible Tower now. So we've seen a lot with regards to Ansible now. We've seen how to write a playbook. We've seen how to write a play. We've seen what Ansible role is. We've seen Ansible Galaxy. But what it doesn't change is the fact that it's very difficult for a person who's probably not very accustomed to Ansible to run an Ansible playbook by himself. So in order to combat that, what we've come up with, what Red Hat has come up with, is something called as Ansible Tower. So it's a web-based Ansible, to put it shortly. It's an enterprise framework for controlling, securing, and managing your Ansible automation. Like I mentioned, a GUI is there where you can, from which a dashboard is there, from where you can access your tasks and where you can run your tasks from, or what they call specifically in Ansible Tower lingo is jobs. It works on a role-based access control, which means that the access that a certain user has is dependent on the role that he's been assigned to. For example, a typical Ansible user may not have access to create a playbook. He might not have access to edit a playbook. He won't even have access to view a playbook. But can he use a playbook for his day-to-day tasks? Certainly. Whereas an admin, for example, he can certainly view the playbooks. He can edit the playbooks. He can modify the playbooks, upload new playbooks. Admin obviously have whatever kind of access he requires. Non-privileged users can safely deploy applications with push button deployment access. Like I said, your users who are probably not very accustomed to Ansible can now run Ansible playbooks at the push of a button. As I'll show you, it'll be very simple to run something as complex as launching an EC2 instance with the push of a button. So this is a pictorial representation of the connection that is there between Ansible Tower, Ansible, and your enterprise itself. You have the admins who are going to push or going to write the Ansible playbooks, and they're going to store it in Ansible Tower. Ansible Tower itself has role-based access control, knowledge and visibility, and centralized and scheduled jobs. What centralized and scheduled jobs essentially means is that your user has the ability to schedule his jobs whenever he is required to. This functionality you could associate with having a cron tab, but that is inbuilt and integrated in your Ansible Tower. It has a simple user interface and a Tower API, which is going to communicate with your Ansible to run all the Ansible playbooks that you're going to use in your Ansible Tower. And then, of course, you have the enterprise itself that you're going to automate using Ansible. And then here are all the use cases that you're going to find yourself uh, uh, you're going to find yourself using with respect to Ansible. You have provisioning, which is essentially like allocating resources for your requirements. You have configuration management, which is essentially ensuring that your devices or your software that you're going to work on has a proper life cycle, and you could possibly even look at extending the life cycle through maybe installing some packages or changing some services or config files. And you have app deployment, which is concerned with deploying the app, which is concerned with deploying maybe a new app. And then you have continuous delivery in the CI/CD pipeline, which is all about pushing your code, pushing your app as many times as possible with as many configurations as possible as per the user requirements. Security compliance is obviously related to the security security policies that a company has to adhere to in order to not violate any laws. And finally, we have something called orchestration. So does anybody know what orchestration is? Anyone? Okay, so here's what I want you guys to do. I want you guys to find out the difference between provisioning, orchestration, configuration management, and deployment. Please take a look once the webinar is over. You'll find that all these terminologies might seem similar to each other, but they have their own subtle differences which speak volumes when you're talking about it from an IT infra point of view. So here are the key components of Ansible Tower. You have the dashboard, the user interface, which you're going to be seeing very soon. You have Ansible Tower users and RBAC, which is the users who are going to use Ansible Tower. You have the typical user, you have the admin, a bunch of users that are going to be using Ansible Tower together. You have credentials where you're going to post important passwords pertaining to the playbooks that you're going to use. So for example, say a use case that we're going to be seeing very soon is an AWS instance that we're going to launch. And you will need credentials, the access key and the secret ID key that your playbook is going to use to launch the instance. So that we've stored in the Ansible Tower. And then you have inventory, which, if you guys recollect, is the collection of hosts and groups that are going to be have these automation tasks being performed on. Then you have projects. Projects are essentially a source file where you're going to collect your playbooks from. You can source your projects from, say, something like Git, or you can source your projects from something like a local machine. So this feature allows you to import playbooks from a variety of sources and ensures that you have a full repository of playbooks, report that you can use accordingly. Jobs are essentially playbooks that you're running. As you see, running a playbook is a job. Workflow is essentially a collection of jobs. So say a requirement exists where you have to use multiple playbooks and you have to sequentially run them so that a certain task is performed. You're going to use a workflow in that. This additional feature is especially important in Ansible Tower. It's as you see, it's a very important use case. It's a very important feature that's going to facilitate a lot of other use cases in your day-to-day activities. So just another slide explaining the features. The visual dashboard is the GUI that we'll have access to, that you'll be seeing very soon. You have RBAC, which essentially means that a user is limited to it has limited access based on the role he's allotted to. graphical inventory management, which allows you to customize the inventory that you'll be performing your tasks on. Job scheduling, which will allow me to run my jobs based on the time and based on the requirements. Real-time historical job status reporting, which will allow me to essentially take a look at the jobs that have been previously run as well as the jobs that are being run henceforth. And of course, remote command execution, because I can access my Ansible Tower from anywhere. I can access it from anywhere, and as long as it has an IP that allows me that access, I can access it, and I can, as per my requirement, run jobs. And Ansible Tower also can be integrated with AD and LDAP, which will allow me to not have to create new users. I can just integrate users to ensure that I can integrate users to ensure that I don't have to create new users itself. So this is as far as the features that are there in Ansible Tower. Any questions with respect to Ansible Tower?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, go on.
Yeah, can we deploy Ansible engine and Tower on the same machine? Is it advisable?
Advisable, maybe not. Possible, yes. You can have that feature definitely. And as you'll see Ansible Tower working, you'll get a better understanding of what's going on as well.
Okay.
Just give me 1 second.
Okay. The other question is like if we have multiple environments like development, testing, and production, so do we maintain different Ansible servers in each environment, or can we use the same server for multiple environments?
Sorry, can you go on? Can you repeat that, please?
See, for example, if we have multiple environments like development, testing, and production, okay. So to push the scripts, do we maintain each Ansible server in each environment, or can we use only one server for all environments?
Can you repeat that?
Ramkrishna, Deepak here.
Yeah.
Probably I can answer that. So when you have multiple environment, you still can have multiple inventories. So Ansible Tower maintain inventories per environment, so that you can have one centralized management Ansible Tower in HA, which can manage multiple of your target environments, which are nothing but the virtual machine environment or physical environment or network environments.
Okay.
Okay. So any other questions?
I hope that answered your question, right?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I got it.
Any other questions? Okay, so let's move on to the demo itself. So this is my Ansible Tower dashboard. As you can see, the dashboard consists of the jobs that have been that are currently running or have been previously run. You can schedule the jobs based on your requirements. Also, the template consists of all the jobs that you can configure as per your requirements. Credentials is where I'll store all my passwords. Projects is where I'll be sourcing my playbooks from. Inventories obviously consists of all the hosts that we're going to run these tasks on. And finally, you have inventory scripts, which brings me to another topic called dynamic inventories. So what we've seen so far are static inventories, where you are defining the way to fetch you're defining how the actual representation of the machine itself, like for example the IP address or the FQDN. You're giving a very sort of permanent way of retrieving information with respect to that host itself. But what if I have a dynamic source of target machines that I want to pick up? That is why dynamic inventories come. You have a script which is going to fetch machines as per your requirement. So as you'll see, we'll be using a dynamic inventory in our use case, where we're going to fetch AWS machines that we're going to customize as per requirement. So this is going to be the workflow that we're going to run. So let me run it and then explain what's happening over here. So as you can see, first thing that pops up is a survey where I'm going to mention the name tag of the AWS instance that I'm going to launch. I'm going to mention the region as well, which is going to contain the which is associated with the AWS region I'm going to launch the instance on, the flavor that I want for my AWS instance, as well as the number of instances, the host name that I want to allocate to my AWS instance, as well as the time zone. So I'm going to name it hello, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run this. So as you can see, we reached the jobs immediately. We reached the jobs panel, and this has started running currently, as you can see over here. So first job that runs is the AWS instance itself, as you can see. So this playbook, what it does is it checks if a security group exists. The security group has certain ports that we want to assign to our target machine so that we can customize it as per our requirements. More specifically, we're talking about WinRM ports for our Windows machine that we're going to launch. Next is going to check. Next is going to launch the EC2 instance itself. So the name tag we've allotted is hello over here. So it's going to launch a EC2 instance with the name tag hello. It's going to mention the US region, US West 2 and GMT Standard Time. GMT Standard Time comes later. But for now, T2 micro and the count itself are what the parameters that are going to be considered when you're launching the EC2 instance itself. Then it's going to wait for WinRM to answer on all hosts. So before we move on to the other jobs inside our workflow, we want to ensure that WinRM is up and running in all our hosts. So one important thing to note here is WinRM by default is not available in your AWS instance when we launch it. So what we've done is we've written a small script which will we've written a small PowerShell script which is going to give us assign a static password to our instance, as well as allocate install all the packages that are required for WinRM to work properly in our AWS instance. So as far as this job is concerned, are there any questions? Okay, so right now we're just waiting for the WinRM to respond on our host, but we should be able to see the host itself in our EC2 management console. So as you can see, hello has popped up over here. It has a specific instance ID. It has the flavor that we've mentioned and the region that we've selected, which is US West 2. It's up and running right now, but we're just waiting for WinRM to start working so that we can now go ahead and customize it. So, right, so we've got the response as well. So let's move back and take a look at the second task that is being run over here. As you can see, what this job is going to do is it's going to dynamically fetch the hosts that are there in our AWS EC2 dashboard itself. So as you can see, 24 groups, but only one host, which is our hello. And that is what it's managed to fetch, and it's successfully run. So moving on is the final job of our play, which is setting a host name. We've set the host name, my host name, and we're going to change the, so the second task that we're going to run is to change the domain name itself. Sorry, not the domain name. We're going to disable firewall, which is the second task. And the third task is changing the time zone. So these are the three tasks. First is change the host name. Second is disable the firewall. Third is change the time zone itself. So these three tasks have successfully run. And now I'm rebooting my machine so that all these tasks have been successfully applied. So any questions with regard to this job? Does anyone want to take a look at the playbook that we've used? Okay, so I'll go ahead and show you the playbook once. So this is with respect to creating the AWS instance itself. You can see here a bunch of variables that we've used. We used access key, secret key, which is stored somewhere else, which is stored in the credentials, and key pair itself, which refers to the key pair that is being used to access it. In our case, it's not really all that necessary because we'll be using RDP and a static password to log into the Windows instance itself. Then you have instance type, which is basically with respect to the network that we're going to allocate it to, and then of course image, which is the AMI that is there. Count tag and instance tag are just random tags that we're allocating. And of course, user data consists of the playbook, the PowerShell script that we're running on our instance to ensure that the name and the static password is assigned, as well as Vinayam functionality has been added to our instance. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at our machine. So I'll just copy the IP and I'm going to connect to it. So password, like I mentioned, is a static password, which I'm going to input now. Okay, sorry. So the problem here is trying to log in with my username. That is not what we want. We want to use the administrator username itself. Right. So let's take a look at the configured machine now. It's currently loading, but this is now our EC2 instance that has started running. So now let's take a look at the changes that we made. First of all, we have the time zone, which we've changed to the GMT time zone, or the London time zone. Let's take a look at the host name now. We've changed it to my host name. Let's check if the details have been stored. Right, so our hostname has been changed to my hostname, as you can see. And the final change we made, we've disabled the firewall. So let's go ahead and check if the firewall has been disabled. So firewall also has been successfully disabled. So all the changes that we've made are at the click of a button. No sort of underlying understanding of what's happening with respect to the playbooks or with respect to the parameters we're passing is required. As long as a high level understanding of what you want to perform and what you want to do, and as long as there's a workflow that has been provided for you, you can perform the task. So this, I believe, is one of the very core unique selling points of Ansible Tower, the fact that automation can be done with the touch of a button. So any questions in general with respect to what has happened? I've shown you the AWS instance YAML file and the instance config file. Any questions with respect to that? What I'll be doing also is I'll be sending the playbooks to you guys as well, so that you can take a look for yourself and you can come back to me if you guys have any further queries with regarding these. But other than that, any other questions? Okay, I guess that'll be all. Thank you. Any questions pertaining to it? Yes, so Nisha, we will be sharing the session video. We'll be putting it in our YouTube channel. For the details, you can inquire from contact@codevance.com. Session video will be shared. Yes, we will send it to that mail account that you mentioned as well. Any further questions you guys have, please feel free to contact us at contact@codevance.com. Any other queries or questions you have, please do share with me. And please don't forget the homework I've assigned. I've asked you guys to find out the difference between provisioning, orchestrating, configuration management, and deploying. Please do find out and tell me what you guys have found out about it. That's all on my behalf. Thank you. One final time, I'm going to just mention any questions you guys have. Apart from that, a video will be shared to you guys. Don't worry. If you can look back at the videos as well to see what the playbooks you've written, and of course you can write your own playbooks. I've provided all the I've given you a very brief idea about how to write playbooks, and that should be enough for you to write your own playbooks as well. So like I said, video will be shared to you guys and will also be uploaded to the YouTube channel that we have. Any other trial available for Ansible account? Ansible engine, Ansible is free actually. You can use Ansible as per your requirements. Ansible engine itself is not free. That is a Red Hat proprietary product, but Ansible itself is free. All it takes is one single command, yum install Ansible, and you're ready to go. You can use your Ansible. Any other questions? Also, guys, any queries regarding the sessions, you can redirect them to mahan.kumar@gayon.com. The mail has been, sorry, 1 second.
Thank you, Chandrahas, for a very good presentation.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Very informative. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope this will be the stepping stone for you guys to get into Ansible. Guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Chandras.
Have a wonderful day, guys. Bye.
Thank you, Chandras.
Sorry. Hi.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, this is Anil here. I just want to know a few things like how do you deploy it in multiple environments, like using a single instance of the Ansible Tower?
Can you be more specific by what you mean by environments?
Like, we have dev environments at SIT, and each and every environment we have a list of servers, right?
Right.
So this point of time, we have Ansible Tower also there in multi instances instead of Ansible Tower with single instance, and I want to deploy it in multiple environments. So do we have any high level steps how we can go with that?
Right. So that is where the inventory file comes into the picture, right? Inventory file is where you're going to post all the IP addresses and the fully qualified domain names, or depending on if it's a dynamic inventory, which is going to fetch the host itself. That is essentially where you're going to plug in the details for you to automate your infra based on the requirements. So for example, you mentioned that there's going to be a separate environment for developers, right? Yeah. So you're going to make a developers group, and then you're going to put all the IPs or all the fully qualified domain names of those developer machines into that group, and then it's a question of mentioning that group itself in your Ansible playbook,
yes.
Right? So I've shown something similar in my playbook itself. I made a group called DB, and I mentioned one IP, because you can mention multiple IPs in that. So I mentioned one IP, and I've made modifications to that one IP, but of course you can mention multiple IPs over there. So that is as far as the environments are concerned. Does that answer your question, or do you want more clarification?
Yeah, no, it's answered my question, but I have another thing, like Ansible Tower in single instance. What does it actually mean? So can we have the Ansible Tower usually in one server and the instances in a different thing, or something like that?
Chandu, I can take that question.
Yes, sir. Please, sir, go ahead.
Answer is yes. You can have a distributed architecture of implementing Ansible Tower. So
great.
in case you need such a solution, please reach out to my team. We can help you and your company.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'll definitely reach out to you on this one. Okay, thank you.
So any more questions, guys? Okay, so we're going to end the session now. Any questions, like I mentioned, please send a message to contact@protonhans.com. That's all on my end, guys. Have a good day. Bye.